Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I'm Matt Green, I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to thank you all for being here. My sobriety date is January 26, 1987. I don't know if is there any newcomers here tonight? If there is, holler out. I can't see, I'm blind, so. Yeah. All right, right on. There's two of us at this conference talking here that wearing patches on the right eye. I'm going to talk to Chris about getting spiritual, so he wears it on the right eye, though. So he's wearing it on. You know, these guys are talking a lot about the steps in the book, and you know, and that wasn't my first sobriety date. You know, I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous in March of 1975. And wondered why I couldn't stay sober. You know, because I didn't do what these guys have been telling you to do all weekend, out of the book, strictly out of the book. You know, I'm getting a sponsor and stuff, and I'm the kind that when I don't drink, I'm crazier, way nuttier not drinking than I ever was drinking, and I try to die while I'm drinking. Because I can't sit, you know, the booze quits working and I want to die desperately. And so when I go to AA and I don't really work the steps, I kind of half-ass do it, and I don't do no service, I don't do nothing, I want to die worse then than I ever do drinking. And I wonder why it doesn't work for a guy like me, and I run in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous for a lot of years. I waited a long time before I ever took a drink. It was a summer between the 3rd and 4th grade. I didn't start at the top and go to the bottom. I started with Thunderbird wine, hot Thunderbird wine. And if you never drink hot Thunderbird wine, you miss some great drinking. I think those guys, you know, born in Texas, they don't know we have a toxic waste site out here in California and out in Kettleman Hills. And I think that Thunderbird wine came from there, and it's just run off of the hills out there, and they just add some red coloring, and they called it Thunderbird wine, and they market that stuff, you know, and it's really cheap, you know. Like way back then, I think it was like $13 cents a bottle, and they used to, you know, a lot of times they'd set it out in front of the stores, and that's what we did when we were kids. We'd just run by and snag it and steal it and drink it, you know, and it, you know, it made life okay. It didn't make it all glorious, but it made it okay. And I had the alcoholic parents, and you know, I'd love to tell you it was their fault, but, you know, my parents were alcoholics. They were never home. We never seen them. You know, and they got the divorce, and then we never really seen them. You know, once in a while, my mom would bring a drunken boyfriend home, and you know, I hated that. You know, every month or two when she came home and brought this drunk with her, you know, he'd beat the living crap out of me. So I hated for her when she even came home. You know, I was the oldest. I got to run the streets. You know, at a real young age, and I started getting in trouble. And you know, I hope like heck that none of you, if you go back out, think, you know, well, God, I didn't do what he did, so I need to add to my story, because, You know, it's not, you know, our prisons and our jails are full of people that did things under the influence of alcohol that aren't alcoholics. You know, I didn't believe that until I started going to prisons, taking the message of Alcoholics Anonymous in. And the first prison I went into, there was a lawyer in there, and it was the first time he ever drank. It was at his daughter's wedding, and he had a couple of whatever those foo-foo people drink at those foo-foo weddings. I've been married 8 times. I never had no kind of wedding like that, you know. With I've been married 4 times at the Reno Heart of Chapel. I think I should get a group discount rate or something, you know. But some fountain type stuff you have or something at whatever kind of weddings those are. And you know, and he was in an accident, and it was a 50-50 fault, but somebody was hurt, and he had alcohol in his system, and he was sent to prison for that. And so that guy went to prison, and it had something to do with drinking, but the guy wasn't an alcoholic, and he's sitting in prison. And so there's people that are doing time but aren't alcoholics. And I believe there's a lot of people when I sit in meetings that the recovery, no, I'm not going to say that. There's people sitting in meetings, I believe, that aren't alcoholics. I'd rather they were sitting there by mistake than out on the streets by mistake. But I believe that's true. I mean, I don't have no doubt I'm an alcoholic. I'm too. I never, ever tried to prove that I was non-alcoholic. I knew I was an alcoholic, and I just wanted to die. It's like, I never tried to control my drinking. I never tried to not drink in the morning. It's like, if you're drinking, why waste time waiting until 5 o'clock? Why waste time waiting until noon? You know, if you're awake, why? Alcohol made me deal with life just the way it was real good. So why would I want to be awake and not drink? Because I hated life. As a little kid in grammar school drinking, I hated everything about life. I got a raw deal in life. I don't ever remember liking life, even before I drank. Life sucked, and the faster I could get out of life, the better it would be. And alcohol just made it okay, and it worked for a real short time, real short. And I had to start mixing hard liquor with the Thunderbird, and I remember I was never going to drink Old Crow whiskey, and to this day I could not tell you what Old Crow whiskey tastes like. My grandfather was a Skid Row alcoholic. He was disgusting. He had crap in his britches, and he peed his pants all the time, and we'd pick him up in disgusting places, and you know, I didn't mind being an alcoholic, but I just didn't want to be like that scuzzbag, man. And I never did live in Skid Row. And you know what? And the thing about it is I lived in Skid Row in my head. I lived in prison in my head. And yeah, I went to the penitentiary, but you know what? For a long time I didn't believe it's where we lived at in our heads. You know, in our emotional state, it didn't matter whether we were locked up behind bars. You know, alcohol controlled what we did and where we lived. And so, yeah, I did the jails and the penitentiaries and all that. But that was a lifestyle that, I got hooked up with the Hells Angels when I was about 10 years old and got my colors when I was 13. And I started running out of institutions. That's because that's what you're supposed to do. I forgot some announcements. Everybody tells me, would you say this? Would you say that? And it's like, shit. You ask God before you get up here and say, God, you're in charge. Forget everything I thought of and you be in charge. But Jill and Noel wanted me to let you guys know to attend the dance. It's free of charge, so there's your announcement, Jill. Seems like a couple other things I was supposed to say. People do that to me all the time. I mean, when I drink, things sound like a good idea. The consequences of them, I never think of that crap. And I know when I drink, I'm going to do stupid things, and I'm probably going to get locked up because that's what I do. But it sounds like a good idea. And there must be something about drinking, and I love women. There's just something about women. I love women. And because they must say, let's get married, and I must say yes. I mean, I don't remember none of this stuff, but I just come to a lot, and here's a marriage certificate, and most of the time I'm already married to a couple other ones, and that creates a problem every once in a while, but I started going in and out of institutions, I started, the booze quit working a long time ago. When I was 13 years old, I started taking other things to be able to function in the world. I always had to work, I always had to bring money, and I always was afraid of people getting over on me. I was always afraid you would find out I was a little wimp inside. I always thought that you would find out that I was really afraid and this little chicken shit little scared kid. And I always had to be on top of the game. And I always had to make you, I lived my whole life by intimidation, and it worked most of my life. And if that didn't work, I would just shoot you, and so it just, either way, I'm going to be on top of this game, and I just ran out of institutions and started sticking needles in my arm, and I would stick anything in my arm. I would come up with brilliant ideas like if a girl could take one birth control pill a day and not get pregnant forever, just think if you slam 20 days worth of birth control pills at one time, you got to get something out of it, right? And it worked. I haven't been pregnant since. But Myers was talking about how nuts he was. Myers was talking about when he got sober and was going to A and stuff, his wife moved back to the end of his house where he was. When I got sober, my wife, when I was gone to a new meeting, my wife changed the locks on the door. That's how, someone asked me if I tell the Harley Davidson, the recruiter's office. Yeah, I guess, everybody was dodging the draft in the Vietnam War, and I had indictments out for me, and I thought, I'll join the Army. I'll quit going to prison and jail and stuff. I'll join the Army and go to Vietnam. And by this time I shot 2 cops and, I went to jail and they were pissed about that kind of stuff. And I got out of it. I had good attorneys. I bought judges off, and so I'll join the Vietnam. I'll go over to Vietnam, and I'll do that deal, and it sounded like a good idea, and they'll straighten me out, and I had indictments for me in Nevada and California, so it's a big commitment for a guy like me. So I get really wasted. You got to get really wasted when you make these major commitments. So I get to the recruiter's office, and I'm on my Harley, and I haven't been to bed in a couple of weeks, and I get to looking at all those steps going up to the recruiter's office, and then there's this landing on top, and I get to thinking, and how we get to drinking and thinking, it just, oh God, it's just a mess. But I get to thinking, if I could rev that Harley up just right, and popped that clutch just right. I could make it to that landing upstairs, and it's a straight-in shot, right? You know, I'll join the Army, and everything would be cool. And something went wrong, and I kind of went airborne, and the brakes don't work worth a shit up there, and I kind of overshot the landing and crashed through the front double doors of the recruiter's office, and I got off that Harley. And you know that part in Bill's story where it says, "I have arrived," you know? I told that recruiter, "I'm the one you're looking for," you know? There's more to that story, but you know, that's you know, I mean, you could just go on and on and on with that. Jack's favorite one is where I stole the kangaroos from the Merced Zoo. You know, I mean, it just. You know, and my mom screwed me out of a $2,500 reward on that deal too. You know. You know, and all that stuff sounds like a good idea when you're doing it, you know, and you know, I mean, you know, when I married my fourth wife and took her home to my third wife, and you know, and and I had two other wives too, you know, and I mean, and you know what? You know what really pissed me off out of that deal is they weren't getting along too good, you know. You know, so I've been in and out of the penitentiaries and everything, and you know, the one thing I didn't really get tired of, that was the Thorazine. If I would have had my way when a Atascadero was built, in the beginning it was built for the criminally insane. The violent criminally insane. I got sent over there when it was new and for observation. And for the violent crimes, they always sent me to the net wards before they took me to jail. That's how they used to do it. I don't think they do that anymore. But they sent us for observation. They'd always Thorazine us out so we couldn't create problems. And I don't see how they observe you then. I mean, you can't do nothing but sit there, you know. But they sent me over to Atascadero, and they Thorazined me out. Really, well, they did everybody, just not me. And a day there was like you made it from your bed to the day room. We could smoke back then, and you make it to the day table, and you'd sit there and you'd work on getting a cigarette to your mouth, you know. And sometimes throughout the day, you'd get that baby in your mouth, you know. And in the back of the day room there, they had this, it was like a cigarette lighter in your car. It was glowing red all the time. And you just go up, shuffle up there to that glowing red hole, and you'd aim for that hole, you know. And when you thought you were lined up, you just fell forward. The problem is that if you missed the hole, you had to go back and start all over. And if you made it in the hole, you couldn't smoke it. You were too loaded, you had to go back over, and you just sat there and watched it like this, you know, and the ashes would fall down, and then the cherry would fall down, and you get up and go to bed. It took all day just to do that, and that was pretty fun, man. Yeah. And so I did that for 4.5 months, and you know, I never got tired of doing that shit either, man. And they sent me back, incapable of adapting to society way of life and homicidal. I don't know where they got that observation from, but you know, I'm 22 years old, and I went before the judge, and they for about the millionth time, but they sent me before the judge at 23 years old in 1975, and that judge. He told me that he was going to send me back to the penitentiary for 2 years or 1 year in AA 5 days a week, and I couldn't make my mind up. And he sent me back to jail for 5 days to make my mind up. I mean, that was a pretty rough decision, you know. And And I didn't make my mind up till I went back before him, and I decided I'd try that A&A for 1 year, 5 days a week. And back then they tested us for alcohol, not drugs, so, I didn't drink for a whole year. I took a year chip. I made it for 10 months, so I figured that was close enough, so I took a year chip. And I actually made it 9 months without taking any dope, but I was crazier than hell, I was trying not to drink, and man, I got in more fights, and I'm turning over tables in the AA meeting, and I'm beating people up inside the AA meeting, and I was just crazier than hell, and once the judge released me, it was back on again. But you know what? I went to that first meeting, and of course I couldn't go in the town I lived in. You can't be, Hell's Angel can't be seen going to a meeting in the town I live in. It's okay to be seen on national news, but, God forbid somebody might think I'm doing something with my life. So I go to Skid Row place, not where I live, and I show up early in a brand new Corvette that I owned, and these guys, they go through the doctor's opinion with me, and I know all that to be true about me, and I told those guys, yeah, that's true, but it's a waste of time. You see, I want to die. That stuff absolutely means nothing when you want to die. And I go, you guys just wasted a whole half hour going over that crap with me because, it's all true. But I want to absolutely die more than anything in the world. And I went to 5 meetings a week for a whole year and, desperately wanted to die. And for the next 10 years, I went in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I always wondered why I went in and out of Alcoholics. Today, I know it was the only hope I had of anything ever being any different. I wanted to die, but I kept, I'd pull guns on cops and I wouldn't pull the trigger, and they'd shoot me, and I'd come to out of surgeries, and I'd still be alive. It's like, damn, what do I got to do to die? I'd shoot up enough dope that the doctor said I should have killed the elephant, and I'd come to out of comas, and I'd still be alive. And it's like, what I got to, and the judges would send me back to AA, and I'd go to AA, and it's like, this stuff just doesn't work for a guy like me, and I did 2 4-step inventories in that time. They weren't truthful. But this way, I could say, see, I did that. I did you guys' stupid steps. I never did no service work. Chris was talking just right before this about all 3 parts of that, the legacies that we live by, and I supposedly did the steps. There was no way in the world I was going to do any kind of service for him. I don't do anything in this world unless I desperately profit from it. Like stealing armored trucks and stuff like. I kind of did that one too, and that one wasn't my fault. This armored truck was abandoned, So it was running and it was abandoned. So what's a good citizen supposed to do but take it, and. I did, God. So I'm going in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous for 10 years, and I'm married for the 7th time and got another kid. This is my 3rd kid, and, life's just the same in and out of all these psychiatric units and jails and insane relationships, and, I'm getting crazier and crazier, and I want to die desperately more and more as the years go on, in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm married to that 7th wife, and that 3rd kid comes along, and I got the ranch, and I got the big business going again, 50 employees and making tons of money, and I got the Lincolns and the Harleys and everything, the cows and the horses and all that, and everything looks good on the outside, but I desperately want to die on the inside, and I can't tell nobody I want to die because I'm a Hell's Angel, I'm a tough guy, and tough guys don't tell nobody how they feel, and I'm going to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and I can't tell you that, hey, when I want to die. I'm telling you, everything is cool, man. Look at all the stuff I own. Look at all the exotic places I travel. Because I would spend money. I would charter planes and fly all my employees all over, to Hawaii and Las Vegas, and I had the money to do it, and I sold all this dope, and And you know what, but I can't tell you that, you know, desperately do I want to die. And you know, when I come to all the times in the hospitals, dying and shit, I don't tell you I want to die. Everybody knows that I want to die, but if you mention it, I'll shoot you. Because it's a secret, man. That's the toughest place I've ever been. You know, being a Hell's Angel and doing all this crazy shit and thinking you're a tough guy, and that's the hardest place in the world to be. That, you know, you want to die so desperately, and everybody in the world knows it, but you think nobody knows because nobody says nothing. And you kick this wife out one more time and she won't come back, and she takes this baby and she's going to run, and you haven't been to bed in about a week, and you're on this drunk, and you get to thinking one night, man, why don't you just blow her head off and take that baby and run? So that's it. You grab a shotgun and you go over to where she's living, and she's not home, and her neighbor's out there, but it doesn't matter, man. They know you've been locked up everywhere all over the state, and doesn't matter no more. You kick the door in, and you're waiting for her to get home, and you stopped at 7-Eleven. You bought 2 bottles of champagne to celebrate blowing her head off, and you're in there and you're guzzling that booze, and you're taking other stuff, and the SWAT team shows up one more time, and the news is there, and you know what? And I don't know why I couldn't go out and shoot another cop this time. I just couldn't do it, but I can't go out and give up because I'm a tough guy, and I get to thinking, man, you know what? The world deserves what they did to me, man, but my kids would be better off without me in this world. And I didn't know what it'd do to my family and how many years of therapy they'd have to go through what I was about to do. And I stuck that shotgun in my head and I pulled the trigger. And the next thing I know, I come to out of that coma months and months later, and I'm strapped to this bed one more time with leather restraints of every part of my body that would move. And I have this plate that snaps in my head, and if I pull it out right now, I still can't talk. I was all the way blind then. I'm most of the way blind now. This is all a blur out here. And I didn't have no face. You could stick your hand inside my head. And I was hooked up to life support systems. And the doctors would come in on a daily basis and tell me, boy, there's nothing we can do for you. You're going to die. And that deal that Chris was talking about, that service, you know, and here's this knock on my door, man, and here's the people from Alcoholics Anonymous one more time. I've been going to AA for 10 years now, and these people from AA are showing up with their big book, and they're asking me, and then they're sitting down next to my bed, and they're asking me, hey, can we read you the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? Like I got a choice in this matter, you know? And man, they're reading out that book, and you know, so desperately I want to tell them, you know, I forget if it was Chris or Myers was talking about, you know, if you're a victim, there's no room for recovery, and that's true, man. And so desperately, I want to tell them, man, you know what? I'm an alcoholic. I am 100%, but you know what? My case is a little bit different than yours. You see, I'm blind and I'm dying, man. You know what? I would love to be able to do what you do, but you see, my case is a little different than you. I desperately want to tell them, but I can't talk and I can't wiggle my head. No, I can't see. Can't see to kill you later if I do live. They not only read me that book, they took shifts all day, every day. Week after week, month after month, every friggin' day, all day long. Not only did that, they asked if they could leave me some tapes in a tape deck there. And when the last one would leave at night, they'd leave a stack of AA tapes there, and they'd put one on, right? And the nurses thought I enjoyed it so bad. You know how they come in and check your pulse and everything every hour all night long? They thought I enjoyed it so much, when one would end, they put another one all night long, man. For the next year, I had to listen to that shit. Man, I heard more circuit speakers before I ever left that hospital, man. And I got out, you know, and they wanted to take me to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's like, you know, I was on national news, and it's like, man, every guy I screwed over, everybody I shot, everybody I robbed, you know, they're going to get me now, man. They all know I'm blind. I can't do shit now. Hell yeah, I want to go to meeting of A. How many meetings of A they got? 5? Shit, I'll go to every one of them, man. I'll hide out in AA. They can't find me in AA. And I started doing the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, hiding out in Alcoholics Anonymous. Got me a sponsor. Wouldn't hardly ever call him. Why call him? I see him every day in the AA meetings. Doing the steps, going to 5 AA meetings a day, sometimes only 3. And over the next 2 years, I drank 4 times. And the last time was the day before my sobriety date. I knew there was a day that this AA crap wouldn't work, and it was time to check out of this cruel, vicious world. And I took 455 synthetic morphine tablets, and I guzzled them down. I saved from all my surgeries. I guzzled them down with 2.5 gallons of vodka. And when I came to out of that coma, I was really pissed, man. It's like, what does it take to die, man? You know, I mean, I'm not just kind of trying to die. I want out of this world so bad, so desperately. You know, it came to me that morning that, you know what? If God's not done with you, you ain't going to die. You know, I mean, by this time, I'm missing so many friggin' body parts. And my whole body's been wired and pinned and screwed and plates put back in and muscles grafted and bones grafted. There's only one original part left of my body. I get to think, if I keep drinking, I'm going to lose that sucker too, man. Chris and Myers, you guys got it together. See how sick they are? I've never said what part that is, and they think they know what part it is. Yeah, I was too weak to stand up, and I rolled out of bed that morning, and I made a deal with God that whatever God and whatever this thing was, God was, and Alcoholics Anonymous wanted me to do. I made a deal that I'd do whatever they would. I was tired of fighting anymore, man. I didn't know what was going to happen with my life, but I would do whatever they wanted. I was sure it was going to be boring, dull, and glum. I'm blind now, no face. I was just done fighting. And so I went to a meeting that day, the noon meeting, and I told them old-timers what had happened, and I was willing to do whatever they wanted me to do and God wanted me to do. And I go, so what do you want me to do? And they go, boy. And they call me boy. And, you know, I was a damn Hell's Angel, not a boy. And God, that would piss me off. And my sponsor, you know, I tell him, stand still and keep talking so I find you, so I'll whip your ass. And and he still has that goofy ass laugh, and he'd laugh and he'd move, and God, it would piss me off. I'd try to find him, and I'd forget what I was pissed off about that day, because now I'm pissed because he's moving, you know, and I can't find him. And they tell me, boy, we want you to pick up the cigarette butts. No. I see how you guys are. You're going to take advantage of the blind guy. We're going to have a circus act now. We're all going to gather at the window and watch a blind boy look for the cigarette butts. And they said, we thought you told God you'd do whatever we wanted you to do. And it's like, okay. So, you know, that was a little over 22 years ago. And it worked so good that day, I still pick up cigarette butts today. You know, there's a lot of people that get time of sobriety, you know, 15, 20 years, 30 years, and they think they don't have to do what they did in the beginning. They want to leave that for the newcomer. You know, and you're going to hear a bunch of stuff in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, like the newcomer's the most important person in the meeting. That's true, after me. You know, if it depends on one of us getting drunk and there's only one cigarette butt out there, I'll guarantee you. might have a better chance of finding before me, but when you bend down and pick it up, I'm going to kick you in the ass. Yeah. You know, I have found that it works still after 22 years to do what I did in the beginning. I found that, you know, they got me in the service, you know, 5 days sober, they got me to go to jail. I don't want to go to the damn jail. I've been there a million times, man. I don't want to go to the damn jail. I still had warrants for my arrest. Luckily, we didn't have to show IDs or nothing back then. And when I went in at 5 days sober, I said, okay, I ain't never going back. And they said, well, boy, we having no problem getting the jail cover. We need you to go. And for a while, and I said, well, I'll give you a year. And that's it. And last April 1st, been 22 years I've been going into the jail. It worked so good back then, I don't know why I would quit going now. I still keep doing the same things I did back then. I still go to meetings every day. I still sponsor people. You know, they were talking about that, you know, about sponsoring people. I sponsored my first guy when I was almost 2 months sober, and he was a gay guy. God, man. How the hell's Angel and a gay guy asked me to sponsor him? God, that just... You know, he died at 8 years sober of AIDS, and his family never accepted him being gay, and I was the only guy there in the hospital when he died. And, you know, there wasn't a lot known about AIDS back then, and I got to sit there and hold that guy while he died, sores and all. And I didn't want to do it. You know, and I thank God for the privilege of giving me that guy that I absolutely wanted to kick his ass when he asked me to sponsor him. You know, the new person that was here, you know what? Life's going to be up and down when you get here. You know, like these guys were, you know, I went through those steps in less than 90 days when I was sober. I mean, I didn't finish the men's step. I owed $1.2 million when I got sober. It doesn't mean because you don't have the money to make all those financial amends that you stop till you get those done. Hell, that took a little over 7 years to pay that shit off. And you know, I mean, I was a big shot contractor that was absolutely, I had to steal the pajamas from the hospital when I left. And I went to tell my sponsor, yeah, but I owed over $500,000 worth of equipment got stolen when I was in the hospital supposed to be dying. He goes, boy, it doesn't matter. If you lost it drinking, gave it away, sold it, it was stolen. If you lost it drinking, it's gone, it's gone. It doesn't matter, boy. I didn't like that answer. But my first year sober, you know, it's like, you know, I got indicted for, you know, you kind of got to work the steps out of order when you're brand new because, you know, like when I was about 2 days sober, I got indicted for income tax evasion for $543,000. And I tried to let them know I'd love to pay them, but I wasn't on the 9th step yet, and they didn't give a shit what step I was on. You know, about a month later, the police department was knocking on my door for some warrants I had out for my arrest, and I informed them that I'd be more than willing to take care of those warrants, but I wasn't on my 9th step yet, and they didn't give a shit what step I was on either, you know. Actually, it was about 3 weeks sober. So you got to kind of take care of some of that stuff out of order, but you know, I had emergency back surgery in my first year of sobriety. My wife changed the locks on the door when I was gone to the noon meeting. I got indicted for murder in my first year of sobriety, and they kept saying, keep coming back, it gets better. And I didn't. This shit gets any better. I don't know if I could take it, man. You know, and get involved in the steps and clear the shit out of the way, because, man, you know, it's fun, man. You know, I mean, it's like this. When I was young in AA and running around in young people's and running all over doing the deals, man, we're running to young peoples in San Diego, and you're hopping, going to different meetings because you got free and stuff, and you find out what hot babes go to what meetings and stuff, and I mean, you're going to dances, and just life's a blast, man. You're free, and you're trying to go after the dances, and here's one of those, what do you call them things where they're testing for if you're drunk driving? Sobriety checkpoint. And there's a whole bunch of you in the car, and then they wave you on, and you go around 17 times trying to go through it, and they keep flagging you on. And you go on panels, man. You're talking about what hot babes going to what meeting and shit, and just, God, life's fun. And then you get old like this now, and you go to the jail panels, and everybody's talking about who's on high cholesterol pills now, and who's had their prostates checked lately, and you know, we don't mention girls anymore at all. You know what the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous has been able to do is, no matter what's gone on in my life, parents dying, getting married in sobriety, getting divorced in sobriety, all the things that, you know, I got my driver's license back being blind in sobriety. If you're having a tough time getting yours back, hang in there, man, you know. I don't know how they do it in Texas, but blind people can get their driver's license out here, you know. You know, I hated my mom desperately. You know, and my mom taking me to meetings got sober and worked the first 3 steps and quit, and turned out to be the angriest, most hateful bitch in the world, man. And the grandkids hated being around her, and God, she was so angry, and God, I want to slap her upside the head, and God, why don't you work the steps? And she lost her job, and that meant she lost her pension, lost everything, got a divorce, lost everything. And I talked it over with my sponsor, and she moved in my house, man, and I was able to financially and everything take care of my mom for the last 10 years of her life. I told my sponsor, why me? He goes, why not you? I go, I got 2 other brothers. He goes, well, one's doing life in prison. It's like, shit, okay, I'll do it. And I didn't like doing it. And, you know, God, and my sponsor told me that it looks like God chose you. And it's like, God, why me, God? You know, when she died, you know, I thank God for allowing this sorry piece of scumbag the privilege of taking care of that terrible, nasty old lady. And I was grateful I got to do it. But, you know, when I was 9 years sober, you know, I got 100% custody of that youngest child of me. And how does a guy like me get 100% custody of his little boy? You know, it seems weird when I'm going to tell you, being married and divorced 8 times, once in sobriety. But at 16 years sober, I absolutely finally learned what love was really like. I met the most awesome love of my life. You know, I was happy with the way my life was, you know, having my kids and my grandkids in my life, and getting to raise my kids, and my grandkids never. I have another grandchild, my 5th grandchild on the way now. I finally have a son-in-law that I absolutely adore. I told my daughter, what happened to you? You finally got a real guy. You don't have a bum that doesn't work. She's had 2 of those. This guy actually has a job with a pension plan and everything, you know. And it's like, Jesus Christ. And they have a baby on the way, and I was really, you know, I was running all over the country. I still do that, running all over the country speaking. Well, I don't go to Canada anymore. I got banned from there last year permanently. My life was good. I stay involved in that book. I stay involved in sponsorship. I stay involved in service. I just stay active in Alcoholics Anonymous. No matter what's going on in my life, I stay current with my sponsor. I listen to tons of CDs all the time. I just enjoy my life just the way it is. And I didn't want to be in another relationship. I wanted to be involved in my kids' life, my grandkids' life. It's just perfect the way it is. And I met this tiny little blonde at 16 years sober, 98 pounds, 5 foot tall, and just stole my heart. And we fell in love. And she was running around the country with me, and she lived over in the Bay Area, and it was just, we never had an argument. It was just, the only bad thing about her was she liked the Oakland Raiders. That was the only bad thing about her. And it was just, for the first time, I used to think, man, those songs on the radio are all bullshit. It can never be that way. I always accepted that love was just the way it was in 8 marriages. I just accepted that's the way it is. I accepted I accepted for less than what I thought it should be for a lot of years of my life. It took me till I was 50 years old. And I finally found out that I didn't have to do that. And anyways, a year ago, June 15th, that love of my life went to, well, she 5 days before that, she went for a doctor's appointment, and he put her in the hospital for a mole on her back, and 5 days later, she died. It was melanoma cancer, and so for the last year, it's been a little tough. And I was bitching about how almost every weekend I was gone all over the country speaking, especially this year. And it's like, man, I need to learn to say no. I was telling her, I need to learn to say no. This year was booked up in every freezing hellhole ice box the United States has. I mean, I've been in the most, I didn't know that we had solid ice box places in the United States that, the warmest days are like 20 below zero for months in a row. And I spoke in places where they said, don't worry about the snow's all gone. The bulbs are blooming. I get there and it snows all day. And it's like, God, what's up with this, And I guess God had a plan to keep me busy. I was talking to some people here this weekend, some friends of mine. It's like, I guess God has a plan. When I can look back in my life, God's had me everything so perfect in the last year. And you know what? My house is in bankruptcy because of the trade I'm in. There absolutely is no work in Fresno. You know what? My life has never been better than it is right now. There's nobody I'd rather be of anybody in the whole world right now. Right today, right this second, there's nobody I'd rather be. There's nothing I'd rather be doing. I wouldn't want to change places with nobody in the whole world other than me right now. And the only thing I do is be involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. Every day I get up and ask God to help me be of maximum service to Him and my fellow man. I do more than that, but that's what I ask God every morning. Myers was talking about that getting on your knees and praying. When I first started out, that getting on your knees wasn't happening. It's finding out what it was. For me, for this tough guy, they told me kick your slippers under the bed. Yeah, tough guys don't wear slippers. And I knew this wasn't going to be a long-term commitment type thing, so I went down and bought some cheap slippers. And I kicked them under the bed, right? And then next morning when I went down to get on my knees again, I screw them. They can stay under there rot for all I care. And my sponsor goes, well, how'd it work? I go, they're still under the bed. And he did that boy shit again. And he goes, you got to find something that's going to get you on your knees. And so I went home and meditated on it. And I thought, you know what? I'll throw my wallet under there with my money in there. And I guarantee you, I was really grateful to get on my knees the next morning and get my wallet out. And I'll tell you, on June 15th, a year ago, last June 15th, when they called me and told me Lori had died, and I went in and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote for about 6 hours. And I didn't want to get on my knees and prayed. And I went in and I threw my wallet under that bed. You know, and I'd love to tell you I was really spiritual. I didn't have to throw my wallet under the bed, but that's what it took for me at 22 years sober. 21 years sober at the time. You know, and sometimes I got to remember what I did back on January 26, 1987. And I still have to do that today. You know, I'm going to tell this one last little story. You know, because these are the things that really make me really want to keep going all the time. Is last week, you know, when I sponsor someone, I just don't sponsor them. I sponsor the whole family. I get involved in the kids. I get involved in all parts of the family. You know, I get involved in their mothers and their father. I get involved in the whole family. And there's one yo-yo I sponsor that thinks he's a big shot contractor. And I remind him of that on a daily basis because he's got a hell of an ego problem. He's got these kids, and the two youngest ones are girls, and they're absolutely... Jack's my roommate, and they know he calls us on, and they'll holler, "Hi, Jack! Hi, man!" when they know he's trying to talk to us. And anyways, the youngest one, well, they both do. He's got a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old, and they go sneak his phone away, and they know my phone number is on automatic dial, and they go sneak his phone, and they say, "I'm calling my sponsor," and they'll take off running with his phone, and you know, and he'll want to ask me what they talked about, and I go, "I don't tell them what you talk to me about them about." And a 7-year-old called me last week, and I was in the shower, so I forget what I was doing. Anyways, she got my voicemail, and you know, I had to call her back, and she's just 7 years old, and she's just a pistol. She was born like on speed or something, you know, and she's just a little angel. And she goes, "Hi, sponsor." She goes, "I'm not sure what step I need to be working." She goes, "Would you please call me back? My mom and daddy both tell me I'm being too nosy. Could you please call me back and tell me what step that falls under?" And I called her back, and I told her, "Honey, I don't know what step that falls under." I go, "But what we can do is we can pray." And I prayed with that little girl, and she thanked me for being her sponsor. And I thank you guys for allowing me to be here tonight. God bless you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. to install the joysticks for control. Up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside. Then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.